Welcome to Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, the founder and CEO of Enter the Arena. I'm a serial entrepreneur and an expert in raising investment and business growth. Our mission at Enter the Arena is to empower female founders to fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business with investment expertise and business coaching. Here we share the stories of inspirational female founders who've raised investment to inspire you to do the same. You'll hear their honest accounts of what it was really like to secure funding, the highs, the lows, and the challenges they experienced on the journey. And along the way, we'll discuss top tips for how you can be successful too. Today I'm speaking to Anushi Desai, the founder of the award-winning snack brand Plant Pops. Now, Plant Pops, if you haven't come across them yet, are a delicious range of plant-based snacks made from ancient grains and seeds from around the world. Their first products to market are created from popped lotus seeds, which I've personally never tried. And I hear they're a bit like crisps meet popcorn, so really different and full of flavour. Now, Anushi founded Plant Pops in 2019 and launched to consumers the following year. And she did this without having any previous experience in the food and drink industry, because her previous life, she was a management consultant at KPMG, so quite a leap. The brand won Best Snacking Innovation at the 2019 World Food Innovation Awards, and they've also been shortlisted for a Great British Food Award, which is amazing. Now, 2020, Anushi raised £300,000 from angel investors to help her grow the brand to the next stage. She did that right in the middle of a pandemic. I'm sure there were plenty of challenges along the way. So let's meet Anushi and find out more about her fundraising story, the highs, the lows, the challenges, and her top tips and advice. So welcome, Anushi. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Lovely to see you. So, right, let's go back to the beginning. So what on earth made you take the leap from what I imagine was probably a pretty safe, well-paid job as a management consultant with a strong progression path into being the founder of a food and drink startup?
Yeah, I think, it's totally random and I kind of appreciate how random it is. I guess it happened kind of organically. So used to work quite long hours, used to eat pretty unhealthily, worked in the city, and it was really only crisps and popcorn, and it got boring pretty quickly, especially when you're in the office. You want something to kind of feel a bit exciting. I actually grew up in India, where pop lotus seeds are so common. I would say then like a nut crisp popcorn replacement all in the one. You go to the cinema, that's what they serve. They don't serve popcorn. So I've always kind of been really familiar with it. And when my parents moved to the UK, you could still get the big bags in the Indian supermarket and make them at home. So I started making them and taking them into work, and people really were really intrigued. They were like, "What is this?" When I tried to explain, it was quite hard, but when they tasted it, they really liked it. So I kind of thought, look, this kind of sort of has legs. My co-founder Ash was actually a colleague of mine at the time. So he's part-time on Plant Pops, and we kind of said, let's just do it. Let's just see where it goes. And I guess it goes back to, my job was super safe, but it was super safe. So it was kind of time to do something else, I think, as well. And it was very much do it now or never do it, and always think about what was going to happen. So I just kind of said, let's take the leap.
Wow. So did you have, at that point, did you think, oh, this is just going to be a side hustle? Or did you think, no, we can make this into something really huge?
Yeah, so it was a side hustle for a little bit, definitely off the side of my desk. I would really recommend that to anyone, just because it allows you to test your proposition and really validate the market. It got to the point where I really couldn't do it as a side hustle anymore. My notice period was so long as well. So it was like January 1st, 2019, I just handed in my notice just because I knew it would be like months before I could leave anyway. I think it was slightly like an impulsive decision, but I did it. And then I knew that if I did that, I would commit to it full time, because at some point I wanted to grow the brand. We want to grow our products. We want to grow our distribution. That is what we want to do with this product. So it just kind of had to be done as a full-time role at some point. So yeah.
So you sort of took the leap off the cliff, hoping that the parachute would open. Which Amazing. So at the start, you said it became impossible to do it as a side hustle. So what what things did you have to do to get the business off the ground, and where did you have to spend money?
Yeah, so because it's a product, our biggest cash flow tie up really goes into making the product. So that's always a big thing for us. We have to pay up front and then we try and earn it back through selling the product. So the biggest thing I think was finding a supplier. That took forever. That took a really, really long time. There's very strict accreditations we needed. We actually still produce in India. That's really important to our product. We could have produced it here, but actually they've been eating it for centuries there. So it felt a bit random to then not work with people who really, really know about the snack. So a lot of cash, I think, just goes into getting the product, getting packaging made. Also because when we order things, we have to order in huge quantities and then just store them, stock them. So when we order packaging, we don't order like 10,000 bags. We have to order 500 kilos, 1 ton. And when you think about how light a bag is, you get hundreds of thousands in there. So yeah, that's probably where kind of we needed funds for pretty imminently when we started.
Yeah, I just got visions of like huge warehouses full of all your snacks. What a leap of faith though, to kind of make that commitment to buy all that product and then thinking, wow, we're going to have to sell this now.
Yeah, it was really scary. Also because our product arrived off of a ship 1 day before our first trade show. It was so stressful. It arrived the day before. Ash and I got in his car. We drove to Elephant and Castle, where we'd managed to find someone to take like a couple of pallets, stuffed the car. And it was like, oh, we can't fit this box. Doesn't matter. It'll fit in the glove compartment. Just stick the bags in there. And it was just overflowing. It was like totally chaotic at the beginning.
Amazing. And so where did you sell them? What's your kind of distribution strategy?
Yeah, so it's kind of changed quite a lot just as we learned about the industry. And I think I'll be pretty open. When we started, we knew nothing about the food industry. We didn't really understand the margins. And it was really speaking to people that worked in this industry, like absorbing any kind of knowledge we could get, that allowed us to kind of play the game a little. Whereas at the beginning, it was kind of like, oh, we've made some snacks. Do you want to try them? And when I look back, I just kind of think, what were we doing? So our strategy at the beginning, I would say, wasn't really a strategy. We had these snacks and we were just trying to sell them. That was basically it. And I guess that still kind of is our strategy, but it's a bit more honed now. So we sell quite a lot online. Especially during the pandemic, we launched onto Amazon, and that's been fantastic for us. We sell through an online store, but really we work with lots of wholesalers. So they get us to lots of independent stores and things like that we wouldn't be able to service directly. We used to supply to a lot of offices. I say used to because of 2019 and what happened, but hopefully we'll pick that up again. And we're also exporting. So there's lots of different strands now. And that's kind of where we find that the money goes, because we have to buy the product up front. And when you're working across so many different strands, it's how much product do you buy? How do you get it in? And things like that.
Amazing. So in terms of kind of that initial start where you had to go out and manufacture and buy those large quantities of product, packaging, etc., is that something you funded yourself at the start?
Yeah, so we were totally self-funded at the start. And it was very kind of like, I would say cheap and cheerful was our vibe. Like if you looked at our kind of the boxes that we sent out, oh, it was so cheap and cheerful, very startup, but really glad we went through it. We also really had to sell the story of what we were trying to build to the supplier, because they really had to take a chance on us as well. And we had to say, look, we can't order your minimum run at the moment to do this product. Like just do some samples for us. And we paid slightly over the odds, but like you would if you order a lower quantity. But yeah, that's totally self-funded. So we were really, really conscious of where everything was going.
Yeah. Okay. And so how far did that get you? I mean, did you kind of basically raid all your savings completely before you went to the next phase?
Yeah, basically. And one of our biggest purchase, apart from product, we booked to stand at a trade show, and we kind of said, this is a stake in the ground. If we book this, we have to have product, we have to have packaging, everything has to be ready for this. And that was like the best thing we could have done, because it was in March 2019. We had our first run, etc. That was all done. We then actually had to take a bit of a break from selling, because our supply chain was just up and down. We just couldn't get the product right, consistent. We couldn't get it over in time. So we took a bit of a break, but actually having that show booked in, which is kind of where all the money went at the beginning, because these trade shows are so expensive. But yeah, it was working out what we wanted to spend it on. And that was like our really big purchase at the beginning.
It sounds like as an interesting strategy you followed, both in terms of the decision you made to quit your job and then this decision to book the trade show, is that you forced yourself to make things happen by financially committing.
Yeah. And I think it's also, I've also kind of learned when I have an idea now about a new product, I tell all my friends and I tell all my family, because if I don't, I'm kind of like, oh, maybe it won't happen. Whereas if I've told lots of people, I will really commit to it and I will execute it. But before that, it kind of just lives in my head. So we're working on some new product development at the moment, and I've told all my friends, like, this is what we're coming out with. And so every time they see me, they'll be like, oh, where is it? It's like, oh, it's coming, I'm working on it, which means, yeah, I've said it out loud, so it has to happen now.
I do exactly the same thing as you, actually. I find it just makes me do it. Yeah, great strategy. Okay, so you raided your piggy bank, you spent all your own money, you got product out there, you did the trade show. So at what point did you think, actually, we're going to need to take on some external funding now?
Yeah, so we kind of decided to do that towards the end of 2019 when we'd had some traction, we'd won some cool awards, we'd been in some great competitions. We actually had retailers, we had wholesalers, we had people selling our product and buying it again. So that's when we thought, actually, in order to produce more product, we needed more money. So we needed that money for marketing, for sales, and I think that's pretty much where all money goes when you're raising a startup. I don't really know where else it would go. Yeah, so it was towards the end of 2019 when we kind of thought, oh, like, now we need to raise some money. We need to start thinking about it.
Okay, and interesting timing, because how were you to know what was going to happen just a few short months later? I mean, when you decided to go out for funding, did you look at sort of the different ways that you could raise the money, and what did you decide to do in terms of your strategy?
Yeah, so again, I would say we didn't really have a strategy. It was very much, this was my first time fundraising. Ash knew a bit about kind of raising money, but he used to work in the private equity transaction services arm of KPMG. So he was familiar with like huge deals. So it was like making the financial model. That was really, really helpful. But neither of us had gone out to kind of get seed funding really for a startup before. And we spoke to loads of different people. I did the Albright pitch day, which was really, really great. And we like met people through there who we had conversations with, but more, I think that was about practicing my pitch. And at the beginning, what I don't think I realized I was doing was practicing my pitch on loads of people that I guess I didn't necessarily like feel wedded to raise money from, but just honing my pitch so that later when we were speaking to people who I was like, it'd be super awesome to have them on board, my pitch was actually perfected. So that, again, I think in hindsight, it wasn't a strategy. It's just kind of what happened. But yeah, we did we spoke to like friends, family, but really we knew we had to find like a couple of angels. We spoke to some VCs. We actually did get some offers from some, which then kind of slightly changed after COVID happened. But I think for us at that stage, it wasn't right to take VC money anyway, especially with kind of the reporting, et cetera, that goes with it. Yeah, it didn't feel right at that time. So yeah, I would say a little bit of a strategy, but not massively.
You sort of developed your strategy as you learned from the conversations you'd had. But I mean, it's interesting just hearing you say that about VCs, because I would have thought that it would have been a bit early for you to go for VC funding. Tell me more about why you felt it wasn't quite right for you at that time.
Yeah, so I just kind of felt it ended up being a little bit more of a dilution. It was these people were actually saying, well, what is your valuation, etc. Whereas when we were speaking to angels, they were really buying into the idea of the product. The valuation was just an afterthought. It was like, oh, yeah, okay, that kind of seems fine. Whereas these were like, well, actually, I think it should be lower. And it just felt too much at that stage. And it also felt kind of with VCs, it wasn't the right moment because it seemed like they wanted 10, 15% of a business, like regardless of the valuation, that was kind of what they wanted. And it was hard to kind of marry the two up. And I think at some stage will graduate to a VC, but at the seed round, it wasn't appropriate for us.
Did you think about crowdfunding at all?
We did, and I kind of quickly put it aside. And I think it's because I think I kind of view crowdfunding, rightly or wrongly, as a marketing tool. And for us, I think we wanted all the money that we raised. Like, I didn't really want a portion of it to kind of go towards marketing costs. And also, we weren't super well known. We're not super well known. So there was a lot of work kind of that went into it. And fundraising is so time consuming anyway. I love working on my business. That's the bit I really like. I would say I don't love fundraising because it is just such a time drain. And crowdfunding felt like it was going to be even more at that stage, which didn't quite feel right.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly can be a time drain, especially if you're doing it for the first time and sort of finding your way as you go. I mean, some of the things you say are really common. I think people sort of speaking to lots of people that might not be quite the right fit can end up taking a lot of your time, can't it?
Yeah, and how I view it now is like, actually, I'm kind of glad that happened because I learned so much about how I wanted to portray the business, actually being able to concisely say to someone our story, our vision, our mission. I just kind of view it as practice. I'm sort of glad that we went through that. But when I look back at it now, I've learned so much about who actually were the right people to speak to. I kind of think now you can sort of, once you've gone through it, tell if someone's not serious near the beginning, sort of by the questions they're asking. Yeah.
There's a skill that you develop, isn't there, around identifying those people who are time wasters versus people who would potentially, really good investors for you. There's some skills that you learn around that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So you went into your fundraise and the pandemic hit. How did that change the way you approached your fundraise? Did that shift?
Yeah, completely. We actually had an offer for the full amount we were going out to raise, and it just kept getting dragged out because there was the pandemic. We're deploying the cash elsewhere. We haven't raised the full fund. This was when it was working with a VC, and then actually got to the point where like we needed the money. We couldn't really keep waiting. So there was a small amount that we had committed from other people that were not part of the VC offer. So we actually just brought that in as part of a rolling close, partly because we just had no money. We needed it to pay our bills at that point. Because it was meant to be closed at the end of March. We'd signed all the documents, everything, but the date just kept shifting. And then this dragged on till kind of summer. And then it was sort of like, actually, we need to draw a line under this. We're going to speak to other people if that money doesn't land in the bank. So basically sort of started again, really, from scratch. And I think this time we were really, really conscious of what we wanted, what we didn't. The other major thing was, and I think everyone was thinking at that time, literally take as much money as you can, just increase your runway massively. So we set out to raise the SEIS amount, which I think pretty much everyone does for their first raise. And then we thought, actually, can we double it? Because I don't want to be doing this again in a year. This is such a time drain. I just want to work on my business. I want to work on plant pops. I don't want to be doing all these calls in a year again. So actually, let's raise a bit more now. And it was a decision because we'd already kind of put a stake on the valuation. So we're diluting ourselves more than we wanted to, but it feels like the right choice to give us a bit of breathing room and some time.
I mean, it's such a personal choice, isn't it? And I think there's no right or wrong. You'll never really know if you made the right decision. But
no,
it's interesting. There's been quite a shift, I think, in recent times to people doing smaller raises more often, rolling closes, as you mentioned, where you're sort of constantly raising, which is, there's a benefit to that in that you can then maybe sell less equity because as you move on, you're constantly improving your valuation. But the downside is that you're constantly raising money. So, and that can be really time consuming. So it's, and I think that it's something also that gets leveled at female founders a lot. I'm sure you're aware of this, that we don't raise as much money as the guys. And I think sometimes that's a good thing. We don't want to be saturated with cash when we don't need it. But I'm glad you decided to end up raising more, especially to see you through, what all the challenges you're going to face right now.
Yeah, definitely. And especially because our business is so cash intensive, it is just massively huge upfront costs for every run. So yeah, it felt nice not to have to hopefully worry about cash flow because that money had been raised. And yeah, it will be earned back, but it's a cash flow thing for us.
But it's hard, isn't it, to make these decisions and to figure out, what's the right valuation at the right time. Again, no right answer. And whatever the valuation is that you raise at, somebody out there will say to you, oh, you could have got a higher valuation, or someone will say, oh, that was a very, top heavy valuation. There's no right and wrong. If you've got a valuation, you've got a valuation.
Yeah, and I think if you have a valuation that people are comfortable investing in, then actually that's your valuation because that's the market determining that it's appropriate. So
how did you find the angels that you got on board?
Yeah, so we met them all in really, really different ways. So we met one through a competition that we did, who was actually introduced to us by one of Ash's colleagues' friends to talk to him about grants. We never kind of pitched to him as such. We wanted his advice because he's raised a lot of money through grants, and we thought maybe it's something we could tap into. I don't really think it was quite appropriate for us, but yeah. And then it kind of just got chatting. I think he felt interested in the brand, etc. And then kind of we felt comfortable asking, would you want to be part of our journey? I hate to say it, but some of them do come through warm intros, which I think is I'm not a huge fan of warm intros. I think they're a huge moat around fundraising. I think it makes it slightly exclusionary. And then I think the flip side is people say, well, if you're kind of determined enough to get a warm intro, that's kind of showing to someone that you're like someone to back, etc. But yeah, so warm intros. I think for one of the angels that we raised from, who like was so excited to have on board, he's amazing, such a support through the process. I messaged him on Instagram, so it's a real mixed bag, to be honest. And quite often it was people who we didn't necessarily set out to raise from. It's people who had kind of followed our journey, and I had reached out to for advice to say, oh, we've received this. What do you think? Never going into it thinking I want them to invest or I'm going to ask them. It was just tapping into them for advice, and they kind of just turned around and said, well, we'll back you. Like, we'll put some money in. And actually that was a really nice feeling, because it's such validation, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's some great points you raised there actually around, I love this discussion around warm intros. So the fact that you built relationships with these people and they knew and trusted you meant that they were much easier to kind of get those kind of people on board as investors than people who don't know you. So that's, I think, the first point. But this thing about warm intros, yeah, I can totally see both sides of it. For professional investors who just get so many approaches, it's really hard for them to cut through all that noise and identify the ones that might be great opportunities to invest in. So it kind of makes sense that people who get recommended to them through their network are going to get looked at first. You kind of, it makes sense, but it's very frustrating for the founder. But I think we have to work with that. Well, how investors want to be connected with, and if you believe in your business enough, which you clearly do, and you are out there sort of networking and hustling, you will be able to find a way to get to those people.
And that's exactly it. So I actually reached out to someone I went to school with who had worked in the VC space for a couple of years, not for kind of warm intros, just literally, will you have a look at my pitch deck? Like I've never done a pitch deck before. I built it off of something I read on the internet, and she helped me a lot through the process, coached me a lot on how to pitch, how to approach. And yeah, I think it is reaching out to people, I guess, in your network. But I get messages on LinkedIn all the time from people asking for advice, and I always respond. So I think people are really happy to help if you ask them, if you frame it in the right way, even if you don't know them personally.
That's right. It's about help and support through this stuff is so important, because if you've never raised investment before, how on earth would you know how to do this stuff? And I'm glad that you had those people that you could call upon to support you. And obviously at Enter the Arena, that's what we do, is do that kind of coaching and advice and supporting female founders through the process. Not everybody's lucky enough to have those kind of friends who can help.
Yeah.
But I think without it, you're kind of flying blind.
Completely. I think it is so important to get that advice. I just think without it, you're also going in slightly under-equipped. It's kind of not an even playing field. And I think it's about shifting mindset as well. So initially, when I was raising investment, it kind of felt very much like I was going cap in hand, asking for money. And then I think something really shifted in the middle of last year where I was like, actually, I want them to come along on this awesome ride. Like, this is SEIS, EIS eligible. Like, we want them to join in, like, come join our journey. And actually we're offering people a chance to join. So it was a mindset shift from I'm asking for money to actually look what we have to offer. And that really helped me.
Yeah, that's so important. And it's actually, I mean, again, it's, I hate to sort of really generalize from a gender perspective, but I think certainly asking for money is something that a lot of female founders feel a bit uncomfortable about. And we have to be able to shift that mindset. Because as you say, like, if you've got a great business which is going places, why on earth wouldn't you want to offer people the opportunity to join the journey?
Yeah, it's people we know, but also I would say some of our investors, they love startups. They love the journey. Like, I have monthly calls with some of them, and it's just like, it's so refreshing because they're kind of saying, oh, well, like, what have you learned? What can you tell us about what's happened this month? And I absolutely love it. Like, I really look forward to it because, yeah, it's to show, we have to showcase and demonstrate growth, but they're on the journey with us. Like, they love it. Like, they've learned about packaging, about crunchiness. Like, it's awesome to kind of have them on board as well.
It's great to hear that your investors are being so supportive. How many angel investors did you end up bringing into the round?
The majority of the round came from 4.
Okay, that's a nice number. That's not too many. And I think that those sort of metrics, again, I would advise founders to think about that, because raising £300,000 from 4-ish investors, that's about right. If you've got 20 investors putting in lots of small amounts directly into your business, that can be quite tricky to manage.
Yeah, I would say we obviously have a high number than 4 because some people did put in lots of smaller amounts. But yeah, it's kind of 4 make up the round, but we send out kind of an update to everyone, and it's very casual. And I think, yeah, it's kind of, hey guys, this is what we did this month.
Good. And if they can be there to support you with skills and expertise and open doors for you, then so much more than money. If you get it right, I mean, that's half the challenge, isn't it? It's finding the really good fit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also about finding someone that you're not scared to go to when you have a problem. Because I can imagine, like, if I had a problem, I'm really happy to say, look, like, this has happened. What would you advise? But if you don't have that relationship, I imagine it's very, very hard to kind of be scared of what's going to happen.
I've seen it go wrong many times where the fit isn't good, or it seems like it's going to be good and then it all goes wrong. Angel investors that can be a bit more meddlesome or unhelpful or just really unavailable. So it sounds like you've done a great job on that front. I mean, just moving on a little bit to talk about being a female founder. It's interesting because obviously you've got a co-founder who's a guy, so you might have seen both sides of the coin, I guess. But how do you think we can get more female founded businesses out there raising investment to scale if they need the money?
Yeah, I do think I've spoken to loads of female founders across lots of different industries, whether it's kind of software where the cash flow is a bit easier, or whether it's a product where it's a bit harder. I think there is a general reticence, and I kind of felt it as well until we were literally out of money and we had to raise. To raise money, it's kind of like, well, how much can we do, like, just with what we have? And actually, at some point, you need the money to grow, to take it to the next level. Otherwise, it's kind of like you're always at the same speed. And I think particularly with the product business, it's really hard because you just can't buy more to sell more, really, unless without taking a loan, etc. And maybe those are avenues that I think female founders go towards first, because there is this perception around raising investment, etc. I don't really know, except to make it easier to have those conversations with investors. And then once you have that conversation, it's kind of up to you to demonstrate you're the right person. That's just up to you. But I think up to that point, it's about getting to that conversation stage.
Do you think it's because it's perceived as being a kind of a scary process or a time-consuming process, or what is it that, in your view, puts female founders, makes them put this to the back of the list of things they want to do?
Maybe people don't think they're ready. I didn't think we were ready. And I think it was a matter of Ash saying, no, like, we are. Like, this is what we need to go for. This is what the valuation needs to be. I was naturally inclined to be like, oh, I think it's too high, or are you sure, etc. But I think it depends on the woman as well. Obviously, I very much kind of like worry about things. I think about things a lot, even if it's just something that can be done really easily. I'll really agonize over it. And I think, it's about kind of, I guess, saying, look, this is what I think my business is worth. You can join on the journey at this percentage. This is how much we're raising. And that's, I think, a really scary thing to do. And it's really scary to do like pitch days and put yourself out there. Like, I find them absolutely nerve-wracking. It does get easier for sure. So I guess it's just about making it as open to participate as possible at the beginning. I think there comes a point at which it's literally up to the business, to the people pitching, to the actual product market fit, the idea. But I think all the stages up till there, I think there are definitely barriers that could be broken down.
It's something that, the point you just made there about, we want to feel like we're really ready. And I think there's two sides to that. There's feeling that our business is ready, but also that we're ready. And as women, we want to be 100% ready before we do anything, whereas the guys will kind of get to 50% and kind of go, yeah, that'll do. And sometimes that can hold us back, that need for having absolutely everything. But also, it's we have to develop our skills and our confidence to be able to get there. So it's about investing in our own skills, I think, as female founders, because and you'll do this, it's very rare that you raise investment once. You'll be raising investment probably a number of times on that journey. So you've got to get good at it,
Yeah, it's kind of like once you've done it once, you're in it. Like, you just have to keep going. And I think that's the other thing as well, that maybe people are wary of. And actually, rightfully so. Like, if that's not the vibe for you, there's no need to do that if that's not right for your business. But for us, it got to a point where we just needed the money to be able to sell more, because it was just, that's what we needed it for, basically.
To have impact in your market, you need some rocket fuel, don't you? To get out, to be working with the big retailers, to get your a lot of it is about brand awareness. That doesn't come for free. Particularly
in FMCG, which is so competitive. That marketing spend is needed to cut through for sure.
But like you say, not everybody needs to raise investment, so it isn't the be all and end all. But if you do, you've got to get out there and just go for it, I think.
Yeah, and actually got to a point where, like, I just didn't care what people thought of me. Like, I messaged people, and I think that is just something that happens. You just kind of don't care what people think, because actually, I love my brand, I love the products, and I want to share it with as many people as possible. And like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Someone's not going to respond. Whereas before, I'd be like, oh, what if they read it? What if it's really awkward? What if it's embarrassing? Actually, it got to the point where, like, oh, if they don't respond, whatever, they weren't right anyway. Like, let's continue.
That's amazing. Your inner confidence really shines. It's wonderful to see.
Oh, thank you. It definitely developed through the process, because at the beginning I was like, oh God, I just don't want to do this. Yeah.
Okay, so brilliant stuff. Well done for raising the money. It's a real achievement, and hopefully it will enable you to do so many exciting things with the business. So what are you focusing on next? What can we see coming up from Plant Pops?
Yeah, so we have a couple of new products that we're currently working on, super excited for. They're just going through kind of the later stage trials and shelf life and all that jazz. We're working on growing our distribution as well, both within the UK, but also to some new export markets. So hopefully you'll see us in more places, and you'll get to try the products. And if you do, let me know what you think.
Yeah, can't wait. I'm embarrassed to say I haven't tried them yet. So in fact, I think I might have tried them when you pitched at the Albright, because you did bring some samples along.
Yeah, we did sampling, and that was actually quite fun because we have a product, we are able to do that. I can see it is harder if it's
so
a different kind of
actually try it there and then. You got them hooked, haven't you? That's the thing.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Well, I'm gonna have to go out and buy some now. I'll have to go and get some for my kids for movie night this weekend.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us, Anushi. It's really helpful for other female founders to listen to your learnings, and also for people in the investment community to get an insight as to what us female founders go through when we're raising investment. So really, really helpful. Thank you. And I wish you all the best.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Julia.
Thanks for following Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. This content is all provided to you for free, so if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe so you never miss another one. Enter the Arena has helped hundreds of female founders fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business. Our first-hand experience, expert guidance, and proven programs help female founders unleash the Wonder Woman inside. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.enterthearena.co.uk. I'm Julia Elliott Brown, and I look forward to talking with you soon.